recording on Zoom too. So, all right, we're live on Facebook, and I've been excited about this, man, because I've been following you for a few years now, and you're a teacher to me. Yeah, I've learned a lot from you. So for those who are watching, those who are listening, my name is Carl, and this is the playlist called The Players. And we have a player with us, an incredible musician, a composer, a recording artist, an educator, a drummer. And I'm really pleased to introduce my special guest, Mr. Sergio Bellotti. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Carl. What a pleasure to be here with you and with the viewers, broadcasting worldwide. Such a beautiful chance and opportunity we have nowadays to do this. And
The world.
not only I want to say hello to you, but to all the viewers and telling everybody how excited I am to be here.
Well, I'm excited too, man. And this was pretty short notice, and I appreciate you. We just got right on this in a couple of days, so let's do it. So the timing worked, and I don't really like to wait on things. I get excited. I want to do it. So this is cool.
Right on.
So I just wanted to start with obviously thank you again. Really appreciate this. I first became aware of you many years ago. I'd sent a message on the Berklee College website to, I didn't think Vinny would read it, but I thought somebody would, and somebody did. It was you. Like, hey, you got any gigs coming up? Your calendar's empty, and I know it can't be actually empty. So, and I know that at the time, you were managing you were his webmaster, right? You worked for him for a few years doing that.
Correct. Yes, I was fortunate to be able to interact with one of my drumming heroes of all time.
Yeah.
Through the web services that I was offering at the time. What happened is that I learned a little bit of HTML because I wanted to get on the game. We're talking about early 2000, late 90s, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to learn the language so that I could be able to build my own site. This is a little before the easy softwares,
Sure.
Took a class, and then while I was building my website, I was browsing to see who else did have a website or did not have a website. And I found out that vinnycolaiuta.com was actually available.
Whoa.
And I said, wow, Vinny doesn't have a website yet. So I secured the name, mm-hmm. and I started building a fan page.
Oh.
Listing things, all things related to Vinny, his discography, some photos, whatever info I could find, and of course I was also hoping that I had a disclaimer actually for a moment on the website asking Vinny to get in touch with me because this website was about him and I wanted his blessing and a little bit of forward motion from him to make it happen. And sure enough, he did. And he kind of liked my approach, my offer. He was flattered. And also, I made sure he understood there was no other intentions other than showcasing him to the world, mm-hmm. pay tribute and respect. And once he understood that, that was the beginning of a friendship that from the web transitioned into the real world.
That's great, man.
He was coming to Boston to play. We met a few times and, we would talk on the phone about the website. So that lasted for a few years and it was incredible because I would get messages from guys like you asking info. There were people, trying to book him for sessions or people sending photos. It was incredible. I mean, it really gave me a chance to get to know more of him. And
that's really
also friendship, which we still have, and I'm grateful for that.
That's cool, man. Yeah, he's definitely one of my heroes. I mean, when you talk about influences, well, he's at the top of the list, man.
Right.
I mean,
he's one few guys, there's a list of guys that you don't need to say the last name. You'll just say Vinny.
Yeah.
In
Buddy,
And
Vinny.
people,
Yeah,
it's like saying Max, you know.
exactly. Yeah, Elvin, right? I mean, you don't need to say Jones. Not in the jazz world, right?
There's a couple of Dave, you know, Dave, you got Garibaldi and Weckel, but most names are pretty unique, and you only have to say the first name, and people will go like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, let's go back for a minute. You are originally from Italy, is that correct?
Correct, from Bari, Italy, which is down below the south, the heel.
Okay. Yeah, I was in Italy maybe a year and a half ago, just in Rome, 2.5 days, 1 day me time, the other day working, the other half day sleeping until I went to the airport. And I'll tell you, man, I never had so much great pasta in my life.
Of course.
Oh man. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Now, you were playing drums. Oh, I love your website, by the way. It says, what does it say? Made in Italy, grown and something in Italy and some in US. I forget. It's really great though.
I think it says made in Italy with Italian components. It actually established in 1968. That's when I was born.
That's it. Yeah, I love that, man. I love it.
Yeah, made in Italy with Italian components. Some, and then I wrote some assembly in the U.S.
Genius. I love that. So you started drumming there? I'm guessing. You got into music.
Yes, I got into music and drumming when I was about 15, 16. You know, started really heavily listening to music a little earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
But by turning 15, I started putting pressure on my parents to get me a drum set. And then by age 16, I finally got it. There was a little bit of struggle there because we lived in an apartment. And so my parents like, what about bass? What about guitar? What about piano? And I kept insisting. I said, either I play the drums or I won't play any instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, my father was like, okay, well, let me talk to the condo association, you know, the people in the building. And I got a permission to play from 4 to 7 in the afternoon. Only those hours,
Nice.
4 p.m. So typically at 3:59, I was already in,
Yeah, that's cool, man.
ready position to attack the drums.
So I have a question. You are left-handed with you, so it's a mirror setup that you normally use, and I'm just curious now. Are you left-handed naturally? Do you write left-handed, or did you? I've heard stories of people like I think Mark Craney, maybe his dad set up the drums backwards by mistake, and that's how he learned. What was it for you?
For me, first of all, I'm lefty because I do write with my left and I do most of my daily activities. You know, I naturally
Yeah.
feel more strength in the
And I
left
know you, and I'm
body.
interrupting. I'm very sorry. I also know you play right-handed too, but you would naturally go to left-handed setup, though, right?
My
Yeah.
my ideal setup would be backwards of what I have now, which I can actually show.
Sure. Yeah. Let's take a look.
So right now I'm at my studio. The drums are set up right-handed because last night my wife was having a session. So but I'll sit down and first of all, it's a great opportunity to practice on a right-handed kit. That gave me lots of ideas and still does. But also occasionally, depending on the complexity of the music,
Yeah.
if there is no reading involved, that it's something fairly simple, I don't mind playing right-handed. Ironically, I find that the feel is slightly different. There's some to be said about trying things on the other side. But to go back to your question, I am left-handed, and when I started playing, go back here. Well, when I started playing, I actually did not know how to set up the drums. I went with magazines, photos of catalogs, and I set up the drums right-handed or right-footed, both. And for a couple of months before taking lessons, I banged away on my own that way. When I went to see my first teacher, he told me, well, if you're left-handed, this is what we do. And he told me to swap everything backward, the other way. And then I continued as such. I remember making more improvements when I was on my natural side. And I don't know if it was psychological or it really went that way, but I remember that I basically did in 1 week all the things that I had learned 2 months the other way around. But, I'm not sure that's because I was on my right side, quote unquote, correct side. That I will never know.
Yeah, right. You don't have the counterfactual, as they say, to go back to that same year you started and then do it the other way completely your whole life. But there is something to be said for, and this only comes from my years here, many years of in the neuro rehab field, cognitive rehab, and always literally on a daily basis. And some people think, well, what's the connection with music and the brain? Well, music and the brain have a very strong connection, and in many, many ways and on many levels. And there's something to be said for a dominant side versus a non-dominant side. I mean, for me, right-handed, although I have to say, when I was 12 years old, so this is 1973, my English teacher, he says, Carl, I know you love Buddy Rich. My first hero saw him when I was 9, and that sealed the deal. I started playing drums. And my dad was a drummer, so I already had the drums. But then he says, you got to check out this guy, these two bands, Billy Cobham and Chick Corea. That's how he said it. It's just, so Billy Cobham, Crosswinds. I got that on vinyl. And then I got I don't know, Hymn to the Seventh Galaxy or something, Chick, Bill Connors and them. And both Billy and Lenny were playing left-handed ride with a right-handed setup. So I went to that for a while because I thought I wanted to play like them, and it looked convenient. So I didn't have as many crossovers to do,
Sure.
I did it on and off, but I never did the full mirror image, though. Like if I was to sit at your setup, I mean, I did, but I didn't actually practice it. But that whole dominant side thing, there's a thing to it. So for those watching and listening, well, Sergio knows better than I do. He's a really great educator, which we'll get to that soon. I love how you teach. And
thank you.
You got to do what works for you, right? Got to do what works. So when did you come to the U.S. and why?
I came to the U.S. in 1995, so 26 years ago. And the reason why I came was to go to college, Berklee College of Music.
Great. Yeah. And you're teaching there now. Let's jump to that for a second. You teach at Berklee.
I've been teaching there for about 20 years almost.
Wow. Yeah. Bravo, man. That's cool. So we're going to come back to that. So you went to Berklee, and if you don't mind, if you could just give us a brief timeline, just a few things, and I do, I have specific questions for you, but give me a timeline. And if you want to include anything, for example, any gigs that you got, maybe that you loved, and touring, and people you worked with, that how you got the gigs, and if you ever been fired, and being on the road with Bernard Purdy, who prompted these questions. Thank you, Terry. So, but yeah, if you want to give us a timeline and including any of that, that'd be really cool. And then I would definitely want to get to the teaching and also being a student all the time as well.
Well, let me start with coming to Berklee was a little longer than just getting on a plane. Yes, it involved 8 hours of a Rome-Boston flight, but the reason why I'm saying it was a longer journey because I had to audition, and that happened 2 years before coming here. So I auditioned in 93, and I ended up here in 95.
Okay.
And it's funny that you mentioned being fired from a gig, because that ties in the two topics.
Oh, okay.
Really, I came later to Berklee than what I could have, because I kept my gig. I was really on a great gig. We were traveling the world. I was on cruise ships. I was playing on cruise ships at the time. When I auditioned for Berklee, the audition took place in Paris, and that was in between contracts. So I was playing on cruise ships. I did about 3 years total, and I kept hearing the name Berklee, reading it on magazines, Modern Drummer, definitely Modern Drummer. I
Yeah.
remember seeing ads of Modern Drummer, Berklee advertising on Modern Drummer magazines, but also reading interviews, John Robinson and all
Oh
the
yeah.
Aliuda, Steve Smith, all the great guys that I admired had studied at Berklee. So I had this dream, go to America and study at Berklee. But
That's cool.
for some reason, back in the days, it wasn't as easy as it is now, as far as the communication and the bureaucracy, the speed of things. So I managed to secure a slot to audition for a scholarship. The school was very expensive for me. At the time, no euros, we had liras, Italian liras, and the
Okay.
rate change was brutal, particularly in that moment. So, I mean, just a side note that might make some people laugh, but the only time I've been a millionaire in my life was when I came to the United States, because I had millions of liras with me. Now that only added up to about $10,000, but in my currency, it was 20 millions. So I was a millionaire for a moment.
Yeah. That's cool.
The bank and exchanged it.
Until you went to the bank. Yeah.
Yeah. So it took me a moment, because I was on cruise ships and I was in a great band. I mean, we were having the time of, it was just incredible. Night after night, visiting new places. The music was great. My band leader was a phenomenal. I learned so much from him and the lead vocalist, who used to be a drummer. So I was being schooled by these guys that had been doing what we call the profession of being a musician
Yeah.
so many years. So I was learning everything from being a pro, to how to play so many different styles, what to play, what not to play, accompany shows, reading a little bit of charts. And that experience was so valuable. I was getting paid, traveling the world, playing with great musicians. So I kept postponing my scholarship. I asked Berklee twice in a row if I could come the following semester. And I knew that was an option, and the school said yes. Now, at some point, I told my band leaders, oh, by the way, I'm postponing again, so I'll be coming with you on the next contract. And I saw some little bit of a, changing faces there, and the two band leaders had a little chit chat, blah, blah, blah. And, I went to bed, and I was the drummer in the band. So, for me, it was a given. They loved me, I loved them. But the next day after lunch, they called me for a meeting. I said, well, let's go to a meeting, maybe rehearse a tune. The meetings were on the bandstand. Passengers were off the ship. I go to the meeting, and the meeting was about me being fired from the band.
Wow.
Basically, they told me, look, we love you. We love you. But you got to go. You can't keep doing this, because there's a great opportunity for you in America that is waiting for you. And if you keep postponing, look at us. We're 50, 55 at the time.
Really?
End up doing what we're doing for the rest of your life. You have to try the next step. So they said, we love you. If things don't work out, you come here and the job will always be yours. You're always going to be our drummer, our first drummer, always. But you got to go. So sorry, pack your stuff. At the end of this contract, you go to America, and all the best to you.
No kidding, man. That, first of all, being in a band like that can help to develop a player as a very well-rounded player, right? I'm sure the different styles of music, and you're reading charts. So
Absolutely.
A great experience. And then, but they realized though, this sounds like you had a couple really good leaders, because they sort of, in a way, it probably didn't seem so at the time, I don't know, but they did you a favor. Come on, get going.
They
And they
they
recognize talent, and that you could do something beyond the ship. That's pretty cool. That's a great story.
It is. We're still in touch.
Oh, nice.
Chip, yes, we talk at least a few times a year,
Nice.
and I do realize what they did at the time. I actually
Mhm.
realized it back then. You know, it was a little harsh for me to hear. It's hard to understand
Yeah.
that
Well,
led.
sure. Because how old are you at the time? Are you like early 20s or something?
I was 25.
Okay. And I mean, how did you feel when you got that news initially? Like, what was the processing in your mind happening? Like, oh my gosh, I don't have a gig or income. And did you appreciate the opportunity they gave you, or they saw in you, I should say? Was there any panic?
No, no, not really, because I don't even want to call it a B plan, but they were giving me, they were telling me this is, and it will always be your B plan,
Yeah, that's cool.
your A plan.
Okay.
Fantastic. And in the meanwhile, I was already processing. I was actually studying to go to
Yeah.
college, trying to do a little bit of harmony theory, and of course, be on the pad as much as I could and on the set,
Yeah.
because I knew I was going to go to Berklee. I was not going to, it was just a moment in life where there was that little bit of fear of getting out of my comfort zone. The comfort zone was being in a band where I was making great money,
Yeah.
travel the world, and play music for a living. I mean, that alone was a dream come true. Playing with those guys, fantastic. So,
Yeah.
I was just trying to kind of go like, okay, the cage is open. Let me see if I can fly. Oh no, it feels good in here.
Yeah.
Once I did, basically, they did the best thing for me, because once I got here, of course, I realized that was the best move of my life. There's no doubt about it.
That's a really good story. And Terry, thank you for having me ask Sergio about this, because now I see. I actually didn't know what the story was. I had no idea, but I can see where this ties into the Berklee experience.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for this: think outside the box and get out of your comfort zone, because it's easy to stay inside the comfort zone. It's easy to stay inside, stylistically what you do.
Hmm.
I was lucky that I got to play in some real good bands where I was challenged with reading charts and doing big band stuff and R&B and contemporary jazz and a lot of different things. I remember that I think I read in your resume, you or website, you played with the Drifters at one point.
Yes, actually, not too long ago. This is only 3, 4 years ago. I
Okay.
was playing with both the Platters and the Drifters, because
Oh
those
wow.
groups, many times they would do shows together on the same
Mhm.
bill. I've also done a few Drifters, only Drifters shows, but yeah.
Well, the reason I say that is because I also worked with them for a brief amount of time, probably in 2004 or five.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I can't remember the singer's name. The main guy. I could not hit the snare drum hard enough. If I had a baseball bat and hit it hard, it wouldn't have been hard enough. And I got a lesson in the pocket from him. It was a pocket lesson. And I remember going off the chart just a little bit for this one tune, and they stopped. No, in the rehearsals, it's written right out. Just play it the way it's written. Okay. So that never happened again. I was thinking, oh, I love jazzy improvisation. No,
Yeah.
it was actually a great experience, even though I was scared to death. But this comes back to the whole idea of, I don't want to focus on me. I want to focus on you. But I just correlating, getting outside the box, right? Expanding your mind, getting outside your comfort zone. And that gig, I came out better than I went in. And
Yeah.
there's only a few shows.
Oh,
I panicked every night.
I,
And
I,
then they left and they never saw me again because they probably didn't want me. But it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, I forgot the exact way of saying this, but there is no such a thing as a great sailor that has not been through storms. You know, you really craft your skill by being exposed. So
Yeah.
I would say absolutely. One of the things is, well, first of all, sometimes life throws challenges at us, and then you have no choice. You just either rise to the occasion or step back or whatever you have to do. But a lot of times, I think if we make wise decisions to actually step out of the comfort zone, the gains will come right after that. You know, and it might be moving to a new city. You know, maybe you move from a small town where you're the best drummer and go to New York or
Yeah.
LA
Right.
or Nashville, where you got to go and sit in a corner at a jam session and go like,
Mhm.
whoa, okay,
Yeah.
these can really play. I'll try
Mhm.
next week. Kind of a thing. And
I know that feeling.
I mean, for me, Italy to Boston, Berkeley was definitely an over exposure, meaning
We,
definitely. I mean, I remember hearing the first band at Berklee College of Music. They have a meeting, a general meeting with all the entering students for that semester.
Mhm.
And I remember there was a band, a quartet, I believe, playing some music before speeches and welcoming us and so forth. And when I heard that band, I was like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, how good they were. And those were only students, maybe upper semester students.
Mhm.
And when I heard them a year later, they were still a great band, but I wasn't that impressed, if
Mhm.
you know what I mean. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying this in any, you know, um, way other than saying that you automatically raise the bar or the bar raises you to the level of exposure you come to get into. And sometimes, like I said, that challenge comes at you, or sometimes you decide yourself, okay, I'm going to play a style I've never played before. I'm going to join that Cuban band
Yeah.
that I can't play Cuban music because eventually I will get better at it. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there are times when we can decide, especially if we know there's an opportunity there to make the choice of doing this, right? Being
Oh,
around players, but there's also, I like it. For example, I do two different interview series, right? I do the players. I just came up with that name recently because I thought it's appropriate. I'm talking with some of my favorite musicians, and I also have the other one, which is about movement disorders, brain disorders, all the work that I do. In either situation or in any situation, I enjoy being. I'll just say I enjoy being the least knowledgeable or experienced person in the situation or in the room because, and it really not trying to be selfish, but I have everything to gain because I can learn. I talk to you. I watch your videos. I want to talk about some of this education stuff you do because the way you build as an educator, you say it the way I wish that other people would. And thankfully, you're uniquely you. And I resonate with how you teach. And you're the master, and I'm a student. And I know you're a student too, and of sorts, right? We're all students. But this thing for me is raising the bar, I think, is so important to raise the bar on your level of knowledge, refining yourself, evolving, developing yourself, and just becoming the best version of you can, whether it's personally or that and a musician or whatever you're doing. So your outlook on all this stuff, your perspective on this really impresses me a lot.
thank you, Carl. And by the way, when you invited me to do this and I saw the names of the fellow drummers that you
Mm.
have, musicians that you have interviewed, I not only I felt really flattered, but it the names you have there on your show, the players, all of them are people that I've been looking up, way up. as my heroes and sources of inspiration. So this for me, I really want to say thank you for making me part of this, but especially for the words that you told me when we chatted in person, and what you said now, that you have been following my work and you like the way I teach. These are this is fuel in the tank. This is something that, as artists, educators, as human beings, I mean, words of encouragement are always the fuel in the tank. Always. Whether you say it to a kid that doesn't believe in himself or herself, there is always that need. And that's how I teach. I try to always find the positives in anything, and which there is always a positive in anything that a student might play. Even something partially wrong or majorly wrong, I try to get that element that worked well and, zoom in, try to replicate that on other limbs or other aspect of drumming, and get it better, get it to the next level. So for me, that's the approach that works. I'm certainly not a whiplash type teacher, if we want to reference the movie.
You saw the movie Whiplash?
Yeah, that approach. Yeah, I had to, because,
He was genius in the movie, but I wouldn't want him as my teacher.
there was a time where, even if I didn't want to see it, I was forced to watch it, because everybody was asking me, what do you think? We really want to know from you, family members and people that know I play drums. So one time I was on a plane and was part of the,
Oh, yeah.
okay, let me watch this Whiplash. And of course, I didn't associate with that at all. I've always had, since you mentioned that still take lessons, I do. That's true. I've been taking lessons all my life, and I'll probably continue for the rest of my life, because speaking of challenges, that's when you want to get out of the comfort zone and go to see somebody else that will put you on the spot, help you grow, not only as a player, but as a teacher. So lots of the lessons I take is not only because I want to become a better player, obviously, but also because I want to become a better teacher. So learning from my colleagues, how they do it, and how I could incorporate that in my teaching.
It's interesting. Just thinking about the conversation I had last week with Terry Lynn Carrington. You were probably right down the hall from her, right? I mean, or now it's all virtual, but Terry.
We work in the same college. We're great friends.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Terry. I love her playing, and
Me too, man.
I love her person. She's a great, great, inspiring person, and definitely, we're talking about a drummer, composer, visionary.
Absolutely. She has a huge heart. What she was saying, and I'm paraphrasing because it was something that she learned from Wayne Shorter. And she got that gig when she was 21. It's so cool. 14 drummers audition. But anyway, he says, I don't play. I play who I am. I play human. So, and the reason I say that and I think about that is because, some of the best lessons that I've had weren't from drummers, and they weren't from drum teachers. They were usually from other musicians who played different instruments, and they were through conversation. And what they did is they changed my perspective. And that can be better than, a lot of those conversations were better than any lesson I took, except for some I took from that were great lessons. But, and they helped to develop me as a player, so I'm talking about this with Terry, and this really comes down to, and what I'm trying to get to here in my, I tend to have this roundabout way of getting to things, but I want to make a point and lead to it with the appropriate pathway, which is you're taking the student and you're seeing them as a person and as a human, and you're making this a human experience. I'm putting words in your mouth maybe, but I know that's how it is, because you can't teach the way you do and look at things like find the positive and replicate it, try it on other limbs. If you don't care about somebody, And when you care about somebody, you do that, and it's a human experience. And music, if we don't speak the same language, but we play in a band together, I've had that. I'm sure you've had that. You
Yeah,
can still speak together, but it's just not words. And it's a human experience.
it is. It is. And one might say it's very selfish to have as a goal that you want your students to come back the following week, sign up for another plan of lessons. One might think, well, that's your agenda because you need students and you need income. But in my case, the success of the longevity, having students that I had seen in some cases for 8, 10 years, every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that Dave is going to knock on the door. And he's not a professional drummer. He has a different day gig, but he has been there 10 years because he desires to improve.
Yeah.
And watching that growth over time, those are things that I really take personal. First of all, to keep someone engaged and interested in the art of playing music through the drums. But also, I believe, a successful teacher, how to measure the success for a teacher should be really in the success of his or her students. Now, the definition of success, again, coming to lessons every week with a smile, wanting to buy a new book or upgrade drum set,
Yeah.
thinking about the Christmas show, preparing that one song for one Christmas. I mean, to me, that's a success story
Yeah.
for him, her, or for me. And I really think that's that human interaction and personal growth that you were talking about. I resonate when you say that, and I hope you understand my
Oh,
point
yeah.
of view here in the way.
It's almost like I knew you were going to say this, even though I didn't. But
Yeah,
it comes through, though. See, I expected this. The reason is because I've been watching your videos so much, YouTube, and you're not just teaching; you're a mentor. And mentors are very important in life. I have a couple of mentors, actually several, in different areas of my life. But finding the value in somebody, well, value, having somebody realize their potential, picking out the good things, and being, encouraging people like those ship band two directors did for you. Hey, by the way, you're fired because you can go there and do plan A and we'll be plan B. I mean, that's actually that's a really cool story. I love it. I come back to it because they kind of did that to you. Uh, and you're helping other people your way as a mentor and guiding them. It's very cool.
yes.
You go beyond playing. You get into professionalism and this and that and reliability and versatility and playing for the song, not for yourself. I mean, all those great teachers teach the real deal like you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, really important. I mean, to me, that's it's a normal way of operating.
Yeah.
Probably most likely because I was fortunate to have mentors and teachers that brought me up that way, where they put me at the focus of their attention and they wanted the best for me, including, like in that case, by making a harsh decision of letting me go. Someone interviewed me a few years ago, and this story came up in that interview as well. And they actually decided to use that punchline they made that the title of the article and the punchline. It was called Fired for Love. So, of
That's
course,
cool.
fired for love, you probably want to go like, well, wait, how? I
Yeah.
want to read the story. I mean,
That's an oxymoron. You can't
sure,
have that.
we're good at that. That's the gig to
Yeah.
that's the gig to make sure you read the rest of it. It's like, a good title for a movie or a good photo for you to click on something. But I think, having that experience and all of the other teachers that I've had, Well, I can tell you another story. This is a great one. This is when I made my first CD.
Mm-hmm.
I was graduating from Berklee. I was finishing up school, and I had a bunch of mixes, some live cuts, some studio cuts. I probably had more audio than I could fit into a one CD, and I wanted to, sort of get an idea. Okay, if I can only put 74 minutes, and I have 90, I got to cut two, three songs, blah blah blah. So I went to ask some of my teachers what they thought about my work, which song was stronger, blah blah blah, giving a balance to the CD, and went to see a few people that gave me some advice. And then I went to see one of my all-time mentors to this day
Mm-hmm.
and best friends. Studied with him. I was in most of his classes at Berklee College of Music, and I'm talking about Skip Haddon. Skip
Oh,
Haddon,
yeah.
great player, great teacher, wonderful human being. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, a mentor and a friend to me. And I remember when I went to see him, he basically told me, he heard the material. He did hear it. But he told me, he said, I'm not going to tell you anything. You won't hear anything from me because you got to do what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if I tell you what I think, that's not, this is your CD. This is your first album. This is your business card. So material is there is good. Just choose the cuts you want in the order you want and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice, right? Now, you might think, well, you know, he wants to get his lunch break and he's just telling me to go. But that was not the case. I know the man. He's a man who will take his time to help you in any possible way, shape, or form. He really meant that. He was like, it's your thing. Do what you feel.
Yeah, that's cool. So, who were some teachers you've had who really influenced you a lot? There was a guy at Berkeley. Is it Dawson? Alan Dawson? Was he there?
Yeah, well, Alan Dawson was at Berkeley at some point in the
Did
early 70s, but
oh he okay. I know he passed away years ago, but did you ever run into him?
actually, no.
Okay, just curious.
Five, and I believe they died in 97 or 96.
Oh, that's longer ago than I thought. Okay, and pardon the tissue, the Kleenex, folks. I'm still post COVID, and I'm feeling really good, but my body's still being weird. So, okay, so Alan, yeah, that's longer ago than I had remembered. So, tell me about a couple of your teachers, if you want, some of your favorite lessons or favorite teachers, or if you will.
Well, first of all, let me say a couple of things about Alan Dawson because although I never met him, it feels like I've studied with him because for a couple of reasons. One, because if you live in Boston, come to Boston for a while, or there is no such a thing as being in the drumming community, studying drums, living in Boston to this date now, and not being exposed to the legacy of Alan Dawson. Alan,
Sure.
by the way, was the teacher of Terry Lynn Carrington for many
Okay.
years.
Mm-hmm.
He taught the who is who of drumming, really.
Yeah.
People would drive from far away, even from other countries, from what I understand. So the Alan Dawson school methodology still lives at Berkeley. A
Oh,
lot of things that we do in the curriculum are things that are really based on his disciplines and his method of teaching. But on top of that, my very first teacher at Berkeley
mm-hmm.
was John Ramsey. And John Ramsey, I ended up studying for 3 semesters with him. John Ramsey was writing the book at the time, and that book, the complete drum set vocabulary for the modern drummer, I believe it's called. It's all based on the Alan Dawson methodology. So
Oh,
John
wow.
of Alan for many many years. So I pretty much did the things that I would have done with Alan, but through John.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I see. That's cool. That's
Yeah,
great.
and at the end of my cycle, just to complete about Alan Dawson, but at the end of my cycle with John Ramsey, actually John said, "Why don't you go and take some lessons with Alan? Because it'd be great if you hear this stuff from him, and he might, do his thing, polish up, whatever, take it to the next level. Obviously,
Hmm.
yeah." But and he actually made a call in front of me. I'll never forget it. Made a call to Alan's house to tell him, I have a student, he'll come to see you. And unfortunately, he didn't answer the phone. His wife answered the phone, saying that Alan was at the hospital, wasn't,
Oh,
and that was the end of it. So
yeah.
I got a chance to study with Alan, almost.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, it's cool though that so they have, the legacy is still there. People are still getting Alan's teachings, basically, right? The foundation he laid.
I think that's going to stay forever
That's
because
so good.
really
Yeah, he
the tradition of the rudimental work that drummers do
sure.
and the awareness of the musicality, playing songs, not
Yeah.
beats. I mean, that's going to stay forever. The concepts that Alan had and the methodology, the ways to interpret syncopation in so many different ways, that's his notion and, his developments are going to be here for a long time. But the other teachers I've had, I mentioned one, John Ramsey, definitely. Uh, every teacher I've had at Berklee College of Music has been phenomenal, gave me
Hmm.
something that I still bring with me everywhere I go. John Azilla,
Hmm.
spent 2 semesters with him. Kenwood Denard.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Actually, with Kenwood, I used to go to New York and take private lessons outside the school. I
Hmm.
would do one Sunday a month for 3 hours.
Wow.
Take the bus, 3 hour lesson,
Yeah.
take the bus back. Those were some of the best lessons I've ever had in my life. Then I took, a few other courses and labs. I've had
Hmm.
Larry Finn, Casey Sherrill,
Oh, wow, man.
the late great Ed Kaspic, a
Uh-huh.
phenomenal brush class with him that was really interesting. And I was fortunate to take a few lessons with Bob Moses. He
Oh,
wasn't he was not at Berkeley, but he lives in the Boston area. So I went to his house, took a few lessons with him. Boston is to me it's not that I lived in other cities in the United States, but I traveled enough to know and I hear stories.
excuse
But
me.
the legacy, there's enough drumming in Boston. It's like a mecca of drumming. If you think about, Alan Dawson, Terry Lynn Carrington, Mike Mangini, Bob
Oh,
Moses,
yeah.
Lenny Nelson. Lenny Nelson, not many people know about
Really?
Nelson, but I
Yeah.
urge everybody to go on the web, on YouTube, and type in Lenny Nelson, Lenny the 25th Nelson. He has a ton of YouTube videos that will keep you entertained for a long time. And he's
Oh,
really, really a great teacher.
that's cool.
He's a mentor to me and many others. Jeff Watts has mentioned him on a Modern Drummer interview. Um, Billy Kilson. I mean, if anybody's listening
Yeah.
and loves Billy Kilson as much as I do, he's definitely one of my favorite drummers. Also
Yeah.
at Berklee. If you love how Billy Kilson plays, you have to understand that Billy studied with Lenny Nelson, and I think he is really the number one messenger of what Lenny Nelson does.
That's
Of course, Billy does it his own way, but you could clearly see
yeah.
the transition into Billy's playing, and so we're talking about up here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So first of all, let's go back. So Kenwood, I mean, that guy, I never seen him live. I'd love to see him live. Um, love that guy. That had to be really cool because he had a variety of things that he has done. Is Casey Sherrill, is he at Berkeley or Boston?
Yeah, yeah,
Is
he's
he?
I took a great class with Casey. He's a wonderful player. I've seen him play many, many times. Great educator. He has
Yeah.
publications out.
Well,
Absolutely.
I feel bad saying this, and Casey, if you see this, I apologize. First of all, I love how you play. Um, but I just I forget about people sometime. And then Steve Hunt has a new album coming out like in a week or so, and
Yeah.
Casey plays on it. First of
Yes.
all, I saw the name and I said, "Oh my gosh!"
I mean,
I go down in the basement. I start digging up vinyl that Casey plays on. I started listening to it, and I mean, he's shredding and musically shredding, not just shredding, but man, he just kicks butt on that song on Steve's
yeah.
thing. And yeah, man, what a player.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
So
Casey's.
and Bob Moses, man, that's just wow. That's a wow.
Yeah. Bob Moses. Bob Moses still teaches privately, and actually, one of my goals this year is to go see him after 20 plus years. I want to go see him again
Wow, man.
and
I'll carry the stick bag in for you.
take him more because the man is different than anybody else
Oh,
there. And
well, so I'd like to segue for a minute. We can revisit anything you want if there's anything you want to say about anything that we talked about already. But you were started to hit on we were talking about some of the teachers and Alan Dawson and musicality. Well, one of my favorite things, actually, my first teacher who really taught me about musicality was Peter Erskine. And I've never taken a sit down face to face physical lesson with him. We met when I was 11. He was 18. He was on the first tour he did with the Kenton band, Stan Kenton.
yeah,
My parents took me. They're big Kenton fans of Maynard and Woody and Tito Puente and all these people. So Peter's there with, it was so funny. Yeah, like each drum was like a different manufacturer. No bottom heads, no front head on the thing. He's got like a 26-inch ride that's like really thick. Could stand like that. And then next time I saw him the next year, he had an endorsement, Slingerland and Zildjian, and so it's really cool. But we stayed in touch, and actually, he's one of those people who helped me with musicality, space between notes, space, how important space is, and playing for the song. He always said, "Play for the song. Don't get fancy unless you're supposed to." Because I'm watching. No offense. Well, I won't name any names. There were drummers who were really fancy and flashy, and I wanted to be like that because that looks cool. Until my dad, said, "You're never going to get hired if you play like that." So my dad and Peter were the first ones, and then I'm going off, man. Let's go back. You and musicality. I want to get to some of the teaching that you do because we've talked about it in some respects, but I was just watching a video the other day. All you talked about for 8 minutes, and when I say that, I say this as a compliment, was a paradiddle. Just the paradiddle. And how you can break it up. In fact, I love what you said about why play a paradiddle. Who cares if you're not accenting any notes? You could go to a single stroke, double stroke. If they're all the same, if you can make that happen, why do it? Well, maybe there's a reason for some people, but then you talk about accenting, then splitting it up between parts of the drum set, then accenting different parts of the paradiddle, and then having it become part of your vocabulary. And that, to me, there's a drummer named Frank Briggs who is from Syracuse who lives in LA now. But Frank Briggs and I were talking years ago about vocabulary. He says you need to expand your vocabulary. I love that word. I love how you use the way you teach is, I love the layers, the way you stack, because everything is stacked so appropriately on top of everything else.
mm-hmm.
I was
Thank you.
going to ask a question. Now I can't remember what it was. No, I know what it was. So when you're thinking about this, and of course you could overthink things too. I know when I've been challenged in situations, I have to play and I'm thinking too much, it always screws it up. I go with the feeling. But if you were to be thinking, and then eventually have the thinking become a feeling. What's your approach to teaching in general, playing in general, and educating? It's a very broad question, but if you can expound upon any of that, your approach to it, I would love it.
Sure, I'll try. It is a broad question. I'm trying to see the connecting dots. For me, it's actually very important to teach what I could bring from my own personal experience. First of all, I taught myself as much as I took lessons from many, many people, and I continue to do so. I really believe that the best teacher you would want to have is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Have enough discipline, and through the years and the process, understand how you learn, and then get it done. Of course, that's when the discipline comes in. But learning how to do so is very, very important. And it's a process. It's not, it's not something that you could study off a book or in one lesson. You have to constantly sit down at the kit, the pad, or whatever other discipline you do, and put the hours. Just putting the hours in will slowly yet surely get you to the next level, which is extremely, extremely important. The 10,000 hours log kind of a thing where you become a master at something.
I was just thinking that as you said it. Yeah, it's the 10,000 hour thing.
And we don't want to count hours here, but the concept is very simple. That is on anything, whether it's learning a new technology or you want your left hand. Some people, I'm lefty, so for me would be the right hand, but some people would, think there's a magic DVD or a book or a particular teacher that will show them the secret to have that left hand match the right hand. And truth of the matter is that the right hand in most cases has been working harder and more. Mm-hmm. And so, you want to follow that same script and put the hours and the efforts into getting your other limb better, if that's what you want to do. And I'm not even suggesting that's so important, but I'm saying for me, teaching myself is very, very important. And it's always a work in progress. I have to continuously try to find out what works best, most efficiently. Prioritizing is very, very important. Mm-hmm. And this is a connecting dot with playing as well.
Okay. And I'm interrupting for 1 second because I could have done a better job at asking those questions, those broad series of questions, but let's keep going because I may ask one of them separately in a minute. We'll see what happens. So I did give you a loaded question to connect some dots to, but I also think that it's all related. In particular, though, as you're moving forward, connecting the dot to playing, I'm curious to know where you start with a student in your teaching. So we get to that whenever. It's almost like in my business, I do assessments, see where they're at, and then see what they need and start a journey. But I'm getting off track. Let's go back to playing. You're connecting the dot with practicing discipline, commitment, and
right. I was making that connection because in learning and teaching, which I see as the same thing, because I'm teaching myself, therefore I'm learning, and I want my students to learn through my teaching, although I have to inspire them and tell them, I can show you this. The Chinese say I'm going to leave the door open, but you must come in. Mm-hmm. If I don't teach my students that self-discipline and a few concepts that I've developed over the years, they're not going to get better at it. Mm-hmm. So I want them to understand that they have to do the work after having understood the instructions, what the goals are, and really then you can put the work into it. In other words, we decided to make a hole, for example, a certain spot on a wall. We're not going to try to, if it doesn't work, we're not going to aim here and then there and there. No, the hole has to be here because this is where the wire comes in. We're going to continue to hit that hole until poof.
Yeah.
So methodology, very important. Now, not everybody learns the same way, of course. So that's my job.
That's a good point.
Try to find out what works best, but the goal has to be, you said something about, having understanding the needs. That is very, very important. Not only I want to know where they're at, my students, and that comes through hearing them play week after week. By the way, what a student plays during a lesson is usually 20-30% of what he or she might do. So in the era of social media, I always like to go and check them out in their own element. And many, many times I've been blown away how they didn't really function that well in my lesson, doing the things that I was asking them. But then in their own element, they were doing things that were beyond, sometimes even things that I would like, hey, by the way, I saw one of your videos. What was that?
That's cool.
Absolutely. No, it happens. I mean, people have different skills and, and they come in the right environment, in the right element. But the connection with, not to get sidetracked here, but the connection with playing is that having priorities. So when I teach someone, I want to know what their goals are. Of course, when we're in college, we have final exams, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. So my goals, or the student goals, and how I can help them meet those goals are pretty much articulated by the college, by the curriculum. So we want to make sure we move in that direction. When I have students that come to see me privately, I definitely ask them to give me a list of strengths and weaknesses, and I tell them that we want to balance the whole spectrum of it, and we want to move some of the weaknesses into the strength column so that they have more of a well-rounded, balanced playing. For me, that's important. You don't want to be a super great player from a technical standpoint, but don't know any songs. Well, all that technicality and coordination and ability means absolutely nothing. Or you don't want to be great at playing or knowing a ton of repertoire in one style, and then you go to a jazz gig and you can't swing the ride cymbal beat because you haven't done any work like that or any listening. So, I try to think of it as going to the gym, work out, and create sort of a harmonized body. If you keep working only on your arms, sure, your arms will get bigger and bigger, but your legs are going to look thinner because of that. So you want to, maintain, and I look at all the areas: reading, repertoire, technique, professionalism, all these categories that are important. But of course, the students sometimes, especially the older ones, will tell you what they need. Some people are into the Christmas party at their company, and they have to sit in and play 2 songs, and they want to do a good job at that. So, tell me what songs those are. We'll play them over and over, and I'll tell you how to play them better, what concepts we can get out of that particular song and make it your own. But to wrap it up, and then I'll let you, because I know you want to continue and ask another separate question on this, but prioritizing is very, very important. Doing things in the wrong order could be very frustrating and also, in some cases, catastrophic in the outcome, in how quickly or effectively we get to the destination. When I'm talking about prioritizing in both teaching and playing, that to me is very, very important. For example, if you listen to music in the wrong orders, stylistically, you listen to the jazz in the 90s without knowing what happened in the 30s or the 20s, good luck. I have done those mistakes.
Me too, man.
I was exposed to the Chicory Electric Band and had no clue who Louis Armstrong was or Count Basie. Boom, not good.
I did it too.
Eventually, I did the homework backwards, but so from a listening standpoint, you want to do things in order, because otherwise it could be frustrating trying to understand. It'd be like learning a new language. You land in France, you don't know any French, and they throw you in a courtroom and you're listening to a trial, a lawyer litigating with a prosecutor in French. It's like, well, you won't understand not even one word.
Yeah.
So, listening to music in the wrong orders or playing. Sometimes students tell me, I want to learn this. This is the cover I want to learn. And I have to tell them, look, not yet. I will get you there, but we need to do things in a different order. So we need to step back and do it my way. At a playing level, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I get on a gig, if I get a call to do a gig, there are different things that I could focus on, but I have to remember the priorities and bringing my own personality, for example, is not always the first priority. I want to learn the gig first. I want to listen to who was doing it before me for many years did, so that I could give them a little bit of what they're, used to hear. And then slowly yet surely my playing, my personality will kick in. But, priorities in music, the first priority is really that they call you again, that you have a second gig. So
Very
time,
true. Yeah.
showing up. Yeah. Yeah. You got to show up. You have to come prepared, have the right gear, show up on time, and learn the material and give them solid timekeeping, because some of the other things might be negotiable and you'll work your way up eventually. But if you remove the main elements out of the equation, there is no second gig. So you will not even have a chance to grow
Yeah.
into that new material, new level of doing things. So even right there, I had to learn at a very young age how to prioritize. And
Yeah. That's, I'll go back for a minute. Back in 80, probably 88 to 90, I think it was, just 2 years, I gigged all the time. I was always gigging a ton, but I taught and I hated it. And the reason is because I was a horrible teacher. I didn't have a system together and I did it all wrong. So I had some real potentially good students and some students who did well and some who could have done well had they had a better teacher. And I have to tell you, now with the work I do and then, learning from you and some people, I'd be a way better teacher, but I probably won't be doing that. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But the thing is these concepts though, they go into so many different areas of life. Show up, do my job as a rehabilitation specialist and work on cognitive decline to make cognition better. It's actually the same thing, sort of, conceptually. Show
yeah,
up, do the job, find out where they're at, find out what they need, find out where they want to be, and help them get there in a sensible fashion. And it's all about them. It's not about me. It's about we. So I learned that later in my life.
absolutely. Well, yeah, we all learn and continue to learn. But it's interesting what you said, that the I forgot what you made a point that I wanted to kind of emphasize a little bit. Can't think of it now. Just a whoop went from the side door, but it'll come back to me.
It'll come back.
Oh yes, no, I know what I wanted to say. Speaking of learning how to become a better teacher, during COVID, we unfortunately, because of COVID, we have had much more time, to be home and work on projects, develop ideas, studying, and doing all the things that most of us have been doing, artists, musicians, trying to work on a, different aspect of our craft or the delivery we do. I came up with an idea which I am going to implement real soon. And first, I'm going to reach out to my former students. Some of them are teachers.
Mm-hmm.
and I want to reach out to them, asking them if they need my help to take their teaching to the next level. Now, the technology allows us to do that very efficiently. I could join in a Zoom meeting where you are teaching, you are B, and you're teaching C, and I'm A. I join in your Zoom meeting for a half hour, 20 minutes, whatever it is, with the consent of the student, and I watch you while teaching.
Oh,
Then at
nice.
some point, if the student is okay with that, I could chime in and give my angle. Otherwise, it could be a conversation to be done at the end of the meeting or at later date and go like, great job. Here's what I would have done. Maybe you can use this material instead, or you could combine the two materials or any advice. It's almost like having an advice on the job.
Sure.
One scenario. The other scenario is, again, with the consent of my student. In this case, I would make my Zoom recordings available to a potential candidate teacher that wants to watch a series of 10 lessons, for example, me teaching an 8-year-old versus a 65-year-old, a guy who
Yeah.
wants to learn jazz, a kid that wants to prepare for a college audition, or just about anybody. So I think there's a lot of value there, learning on the job. You
Yeah.
know, apprentice, the figure of the apprentice going to, in any profession, to spend time with with someone that does it and learning it on the job. And I think it's very, very valuable. Remember, if you think about one of the reasons why I continue to take lessons is to become also a better teacher, not only a better player. And so there's value in this. It's a program I'm going to start with my own students because I already have a personal connection. But if someone is watching this and wants to reach out, please do so. We can find a formula where you're learning how to be a better teacher and be seen on the job and get some feedback from me, or maybe learn yourself through what I would tell your students, or the other way around. So there's lots of ways to do
Yeah.
it. And we're lucky to have the technology to just join in on a Zoom meeting or on a Zoom recording, look at all this data and go like, oh yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that idea.
I
Yeah.
love it. I think it's a great idea because, in my business, in the movement business, movement disorders, I worked for a couple companies out in New York, teaching and traveling all around the world for them before I started my own course. And I got to tell you, man, Brent Brookbush, Dr. Brookbush, if you're listening, he's one of my best friends. It's like mi hermano de otra madre, my brother from another mother.
Yeah.
Whenever I taught with him, because it was his content, it was so scary. And I say that with love, Brent, because you're my brother. But nobody taught me more in this business about how to teach than he did. And one of the best things that helped me as an instructor to evolve as an instructor is to learn from somebody who was watching me instruct. So what you are offering here, and I'm happy when this happens, or whenever you're ready, just tell me what to do. I'll post about it. I can reach out to some people I know. Just like, hey, he's here if you want him, because you have so much to offer in this regard. And one of the other things too is I know that you and I are both the consummate learners. We want to be learning all the time, and we're studying. I find that when I teach, well, I can't say I ever learned anything as a teacher, as a drum teacher, because I just sucked back then at that. I would do well now, though. I'll tell you, I do much better. But I learn a lot when I teach. So I'm actually learning from teaching, and I love that. Every
Absolutely.
day, every client, every patient I see. Today, I only 2 people.
Yeah.
And each of them, I learned something today about me. They didn't even know I learned it. And that's what I love. So now I can refine and I can do a better job with them next time, or for other people too. This actually turns me on. It gets me all excited. I love this stuff because I just want to be the best version of me I can for other people so I can help them better. Let's help you reach your potential, your goals, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
If I get better, I can help you. Yeah, that's cool.
Absolutely. And look, students come to teachers, to us in this case, to get answers. They have this high admiration, expectation. That's why they signed onto the plan.
Hmm.
They see you as a mentor figure. And when they ask a question, they expect that we would come up with a brilliant answer which provides them the solution to their question. We as teachers feel empowered, but also obligated by this. I know I do. So if a student is asking me a question, I want to come up with a great answer. And if I don't accomplish the goal within a reasonable amount of time, I'll try a different approach. But I take a lot of pride at the end of the day to say, remember 4 years ago, or sorry, four lessons ago when you told me, or maybe even 4 years ago, but
Sure.
4 lessons ago when you told me I'm never going to be able to read this because of, you know, dyslexia, or my eyes don't process this way, or I'll never be able to play three limbs at the same time. I'm not wired like that. Well, now you're doing it.
Hmm.
Take a lot of pride in the accomplishment. And sometimes we come up with different systems. The more you teach, the more systems you develop. And that's where what you were saying, not only we are teaching, but we are actually learning at the same time.
I
And
love it.
most of the times I feel like that. I feel earning. I'm earning while learning, which is, if you ask me, that's a dream come true. Not only I do what I love, I'm getting paid to get better at the craft of playing music, or
Absolutely.
any better than that.
Abs-
Well,
Um, I I love how you, and if you hear my dog in the background, I apologize. I think she's fine. Um, so we've talked. I love talking about this stuff with you, especially with you. It's just I've learned a lot already in this past hour. This is it. Do you have another 10, 15 minutes or so to hang out with me?
I do. I frankly, I don't know what time it is, and I didn't book anything after this. It has been a long day setting up. This new camera setup is actually this is the premiere of it.
Yeah, it looks good, man. And you've got the side view I saw from
Four cameras. I'm not going to venture too much now, but I have four cameras. One, that
the
will,
foot cam too.
yeah,
Yeah,
and we're, an overhead there. It's great. So,
that's cool. That's
and
great.
the reason why I built this is because, well, this now is the way to commute in the 21st century. So this is something that will allow me to stream and record also on multiple cameras, and be able to deliver more content. I'm working on a book, by the way. Maybe before we log off, if I could have a couple,
Absolutely.
I could
Oh yeah.
talk about it.
So let's talk about it right now.
Yeah. So I've been working on several ideas. Being a teacher, I've always jotted down notes, whether on paper, now on Finale. I've been learning a little bit of Finale. Then, of course, most of the ideas as a teacher and as a player go here constantly.
Yeah.
And then start thinking about the delivering and the format. And I decided, a while back, that I wanted to put them down in a book, in an instructional book. Well, now is the time. COVID kept me home from playing. Typically I would play 4 nights a week,
Yeah.
occasionally on the road. I would go on the road 5, 6 times a year
Yeah.
for about 2 weeks. So if you had that plus Berklee teaching and owning a drum shop, my schedule is typically jam packed. But
Hmm.
this last year, found an opportunity to really get my thoughts down on Finale, notation, and writing, the content for the book. As I was saying before, I've been working on several ideas, and then at some point I made a decision. I said, I'm going to release a book. This will be the topic. and I'm working full force on it. So I expect by midsummer, late summer, the book will be out.
Great.
It'll be on PDF format, some printed copies, and it will have video of all the or most of the examples in the book.
Oh,
The
good.
topic will be ghost notes,
Ah,
which is something that always comes up as a question in during my travels when I do clinics or even in my private teaching is always something that fascinates drummers. And over the years, I developed my own way to teach it, some applications of my own, but the book will primarily be an historic journey from the technical standpoint
hmm.
of understanding how to execute them. So we go back to stick control, applying some accents and dynamics. There are 4 accents and rebounds. Some studies from the Joe Morello Master Studies book. Dom Famularo, It's Your Move, which is
Oh, yeah. Love
Dom.
that guy. He's great.
Yeah, Dom is my teacher, my mentor, constantly pushing me to do more, and he has been very instrumental in motivating me to do what I'm doing now with the book.
That guy has such, I'm interrupting. I'm very sorry. He has such great energy. And his interviews, man, I love his interviews. He had Vinny on, there's Chikaria on there. It's like, whoa. And he asks great questions and so I love Dom. But going back to this ghost note thing real quick, they can be a almost like a subconscious to the listener, creating this forward momentum in a song. It can help create a deeper pocket. The ghost notes do so many cool things. I'm fascinated by ghost notes. Always have been before I even knew what they were called.
True, true.
Billy Cobham is the first one who I really listened to who was doing them, but I didn't know what they were. But I just thought,
Yeah.
gosh, this is so hip.
Well, the thing about ghost notes is that when they're there, you may not notice them,
Hmm.
but if they are not there, then you'll feel
Yeah.
the beat empty. It's almost like something is gone. They have the
Yeah.
magic power of being there, you know, in between, talking about the space in between the notes, they're
Yeah.
filling all these gaps in a musical way, hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that because some of the examples in the book are the same groove with or without.
Oh,
Now,
that's great. That's I don't know why. I never would have thought of that though. But the takeaway factors that can be huge.
yes,
But
and sometimes you'd be
you may
surprised.
not even know they're there. To the maybe we would know we're drummers. We're gonna look and watch and hear, but take it out, different feel.
Right. Sometimes the stripped down version, the non ghost stroke version, sounds more effective, and that's okay. It's perfectly okay. And as a
Hmm.
matter of fact, learning how to play all the possible ghost notes, permutations, this and that, that's just a technical, that's the craft, a technical ability that you want to develop on the kit. Then the musicality of it, when to use them versus when not to use them, that's a whole different story. And it's interesting to hear both versions, with and without, and deciding. And the deciding factor has to be the music, not just the drum beat.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
if we look at music as a conversation, which most people would agree it is, it really depends on what everybody else is doing.
Hmm.
And sometimes the ghost notes that you would want to play on the snare drum, the guitar player is doing those. That part of the grid is already filled by somebody else. So
Yeah.
by you doing it on top of that, you may actually take away from what the other person is, or in fact, even creating a conflict. I learned in 2019, I was so fortunate to spend an entire year right before COVID on the road we weren't touring the entire year, but we went to Europe, Canada, and a bunch of dates in the U.S. with Joe Louis Walker, who is a phenomenal player, Blues Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
Grammy nominated, burning guitar player, phenomenal vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much, not only from him, but the entire band, Lenny Bradford on bass,
Oh,
the
wow.
others on piano, and hearing the magic that we were trying to create at night was oftentimes a balancing act of the things that I needed to play or needed not to play. And Joe was absolutely phenomenal in teaching me, not only through his instrument, but sometimes even with verbal instructions, at the end of a gig or a sound check or in between, and telling me simple ideas, simple concepts that, you would think at my age I would know. And perhaps in that context, in that moment, to
Mm-hmm.
learn it from him with all that wisdom and experience to say things like, if I'm playing a fill, if you hear me filling, don't fill. Because the chances that we do the same fill are really slim. So you might get in the way. If you hear I'm filling, let me do it.
Yeah.
Then it'll be on you at some other point. And if you see me playing, open chords and let it ring and there is space, that might be an opportunity for you to do your thing. I mean, these are like, how fortunate to hear
Yeah.
masters. And then I can tell you one thing. Every time I would come back from the road, I would play my local gigs as always. And most of the musicians I played with, every time they were like, man, you sound so much better. I mean,
I'm only laughing because you're already great, but we're always looking to improve, aren't we? It's an evolution. This is not like you get to a point and you're done learning and this is it. I have now arrived.
I had the
Not
same,
like that for you and me. We don't work like that.
right. It's not,
They notice that too. Is so cool.
yeah. The chops were the same. It's just the mind.
Yeah.
So musicality aspect is learning how to
That's a good saying, by the way. The chops are the same. It was the mind. Because
and
I've got to show you right now, just for anybody watching, I'm into this neuro rehab stuff and cognition, but I'm sorry, I'm diverting, but it's all the same stuff. This book is not a book you read. It's a book you study. Maybe it's a textbook, but I've been in school, in and out of school many times in my life, most recently for nutrition here at Syracuse University. But this handbook of neurologic music therapy, it goes way beyond traditional music therapy. And it really talks about the brain, the mind, the subconscious. You talk about this in your own way when when you have to think about every single thing you play, every single note that comes out. It would almost be like if you had to think about every step you take to get from wherever you are to your car to the bathroom to the kitchen. You couldn't do anything else. I mean, and if you're playing like that, it just doesn't work out. But that's the way we start, though. We start by thinking. Then it becomes ingrained in us. It becomes a part of you, a part of your mind. So the mind, that's what I want to get back to, is it becomes almost like you're on an autopilot,
right.
with certain things, while you can focus on other things while the other stuff's still going on that you already know how to do, that you don't have to think about, but now you can start. The mind takes you on another journey. You start to play a little different.
It's very true, Carl. And I mentioned Skip Haddon earlier on and during the interview, but he has a great book, which I was fortunate to study from, back in my Berklee days, called The Beat, the Body, and the Brain. You may want to check that out.
Oh, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, at some point, the publisher, I forgot who the publisher was, but anyway, it became World Fusion Drumming. But the original version with the same content was called The Beat, the Body, and the Brain. And you may want to consider having Skip on one of your players' podcasts because,
Sure.
number one, he can tell you more about it. And B, I mean, everybody loves Skip. He'd be phenomenal to interview and pick his brain. The guy has,
Skip Hedden. Yeah. Wow,
you,
that's cool. I wrote it down because
yeah,
anything with the word brain in it, I'll probably buy it.
yeah, good, good.
Um, yeah, this has been so much fun. But I'm not done yet. If you have a couple more minutes, first of all,
I'm,
really love that the way you've articulated so many things about you know playing musically. I mean, that's a big deal. You won't get the second call if you don't do the first call
yeah,
appropriately. You can probably always do the first call better because you practice, but that's why you get a second call, third call. You want to get the second call. Um,
that's what I always aim for. The second call. If
yeah,
I second call, it's going to give me the opportunity to launch into the third call and eventually the longer run. And if you
yeah,
prioritize, you may not get that second call. If in the first gig you're trying band leader how good of a soloist you are, but you neglect to do timekeeping or anything else that the gig
yeah.
really requires, then you may never get to do that again.
See you later, right? Maybe.
Don't call us, we'll call you, the usual.
Yeah. So, man, wait. I think we're gonna have to do like a second interview, a part two, because there's so much more to talk about. Um,
Please look, man, this is fantastic. And sharing. Usually, when I did a few of these with other organizations, one in Italy and one in France, and it's great because I'm able to connect with the new drummers that would send me
yeah, yeah,
questions. I don't know how many people are watching it. Sometimes questions come during the show, sometimes they come later, but it's a phenomenal way to reach worldwide and meet and learn about one another, really.
yes. Don't have any questions here, and I have some comments on Facebook that are Marcus Reuter. Do you know Marcus and from the Stickmen?
No, I don't.
Oh,
But
Marcus is awesome, man. He's a great musician. Tours with Tony Levin, Pat Mestellato. I mean, and lots of other people too. He's done over the years, but he's on and nice comments. Thank you, Marcus. We have to talk soon too.
tell,
We have a project to work on.
tell
Um, yeah, and Steve Hunt. Let's talk about Steve. And you've worked with Steve, or he's worked with you. You guys have worked together, right?
absolutely many.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you already know this. We talked about this off camera beforehand, but I talked to him recently. I've been listening to him for about 30 years. Uh, Discovered him through Alan Holdsworth, the music of Alan. And we just got talking, and we were actually talking for over 4 hours. So 3 hours of it is recorded, and that's the longest I've ever gone. And it seemed like it went by just like that. But what a great guy, man. And what a beautiful musician too,
Yeah. So Steve and I, we met, I want to say in the late 90s, right after finishing Berklee. Um, he joined, I have a fusion group, jazz, electric jazz, whatever you want to call it, called Spaghetti and Jazz. I did that with a
Yeah.
great bass player who also lives in Boston, Tino D'Agostino. And him and I are the founders of the group, but of course, to make music as an ensemble, we try to call the musicians we would want to play with or the best that we can get and so forth, people that we get along with. And Steve, we heard the name Steve Hunt. He lived locally. And of course, we knew all the great work that he did in the past.
Sure.
And so actually, I believe Tino ended up playing a gig where Steve was the pianist. And then that's how we connected. So we asked him to join the band, Spaghetti, which he did. And that was the beginning of a journey, pun intended, because we went to Europe, I want to say 4 or 5 times with that ensemble featuring Steve on keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that legacy, of being in a compact car and driving through for hours and hours. That's when you really bond with someone.
Yeah.
and you know, we gas stops and cappuccinos.
Sure. Yeah. That's great, man.
No, Steve also, as you know, owns a great recording studio here in Chelmsford, Mass, the Kitchen
Yeah.
Recording Studio.
Hmm.
So we used him also as a producer for the last two tracks we released with Mike Stern on guitar were produced by Steve Hunt, and Steve plays on keys. So if anybody wants to check them out on Spotify or on Apple
Oh,
Music,
good. Yeah.
Jazzy, yeah, and you'll hear these tracks, and Steve is on keys, and Mike Stern is on guitar, and I'm on drums, and you know.
Yeah, I've heard. I love what I heard. I heard that. I'll put a link in the description of YouTube so that they can go and check it out. Is there a place that people can go and buy your music besides their favorite listening platform? Because when I recorded my first ever solo CD and released it last year, I learned a lot about how after 8 years of not recording, uh, in the last band I was in, things were different. Now people stream, they download a song if they want it. So CDs is like, I have my CD here. And nobody even cares. I don't even have a CD player in this brand new computer I got. And you know what? It's fine because I don't usually buy CDs anymore. But as I'm rambling here, the point is, where's the best place for people to get your music? And by the way, I'm a proponent of buying people, musicians like Sergio,
You
and
buy,
this
the,
is their career, their life's work, and they are the best of the best, and their heart and passion goes into it. And buying the music is my recommendation to
sure.
give a little love to the musician community because you can probably buy stuff for $10 or $15 and instead of paying $10 a month to stream, which is nothing wrong with,
Well,
but things have changed and support your musicians who you like to hear. There's my rant.
no, I totally agree with you. You know, technology changed. The last car
Yeah.
I wanted a CD player in the car, and the salesman said, if you want a CD player in your car, we need to go to the used parking lot because the new ones don't come with a CD player.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying a used car, actually. I have a used car because I care about my CD player in the car. But anyway, what really happened is that when you had a choice of buying a CD or downloading, purchasing an MP3 or an entire album, I thought that some people were still on the fence and they would do one versus the other because some people still liked to touch, having it on the shelf, looking
Yeah.
at the cover, reading the linear notes. When it became a choice between do I buy an MP3 on Amazon, which we have those. You can buy the Spajazzi music on Amazon and have it, saved on your computer. But it's the same product that an Apple Music subscriber or a Spotify user can hear anyway on their phones wherever they go. So why would they buy the track if the JPEG of the cover looks the same? The sound is just about the same. They won't do it. So unfortunately, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Anyway, on Amazon and on CD Baby has the releases. The first album with Mike Stern is out of print, but we're actually working on releasing that digitally. At least some of the songs that we own the copyrights, we're going to. Yeah, because there was a lot of good material on the first one. It was sold. I know you're a fusion lover, and we talked about it briefly, but Audiophile Imports was a great.
Oh yeah, man.
That Steve Hunt's music is there,
Oh,
her music is there. So much stuff that wasn't part of the mainstream, music.
Yeah, I did a lot of business with them buying stuff too.
Oh yeah,
They had stuff nobody else did.
me too. I'm not sure if they're still in business. I
don't know.
haven't seen any newsletter or anything like that. But Audiophile Imports was the soundtrack of many years of my life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
stuff.
I used to go in there. I used to go in and just type in the word, just Caliuta. And of course, there's like, whoop, bunch of stuff. Or Steve Hunt or whoever. So sorry, my dog's making noise in the background. She'll be okay. But it was cool because then I started to know more about the discography of these people and what I really wanted to focus in and buy. And it was cool because you could get stuff there that you couldn't get anywhere else. Um, let's see. So I do have, I actually don't want to stop, but unfortunately on my end, I need to go in maybe 10 minutes or so. I have two questions I want to ask, and then
Yeah,
you can talk about anything else you want to. But Bernard Purdy, you went on the road with Bernard Purdy.
correct.
How
But
was that? What was that like? I love his videos. He looks like a really fun guy, a character. And what was it like, man?
I, you know, I met Bernard here in the U.S. first. He came
Hmm.
to Berkeley, he came to Boston to do some work with the group, and I reached out. Actually, I met him in Canada. I take it back. I met him in Canada. We both performed at a festival in Cape Breton, Canada. There's a funny story, but we'll leave that for the second interview. But we had an interesting plane ride on one of those 8-seaters, and it was
Oh,
myself,
cool. Yeah.
Bernard Purdy, and I forgot who else was on board. But that was a very interesting trip. But Bernard and I stayed in touch. He told me he was going to come to Boston to play, and I said, "Well, I have a teaching studio near Berkeley, and I would love to A, take a lesson myself, B, help some of my students to connect with you and maybe take lessons." So we planned and successfully organized a full day of lessons with Bernard Purdy. So I ended up being there. Some of the students were from Italy, were my students that had took the, that flew over from Italy to spend 2 months in Boston and
Mhm.
studying with me and experience the scene and so forth.
That's
So I
cool.
was also the translator. I ended up staying there the whole day in the
Oh,
studio
wow.
translating. So I got quadruple, quintuple lesson from Bernard. Lucky me, right?
Wow.
Now we become friends. A friend of mine from Italy owns a music shop, and he told me, he said, I want to have an event, a grand event, and I want to make sure I get a big name. You have to help me. I said, well, I know people in the US. If I don't know them, I know how to reach them. Most likely, shoot, and we'll see what happens. He said, if I do it, it has to be the best. I said, well, tell me what the best is for you. I said, no, 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 I really mean the best. Okay. I said, I concur with your vision. That's such a great vision. I guess he was afraid of, asking or how much it would cost. Finally, I said, come on, man, tell me who is the best? Who is this guy or girl? I didn't know at the time. He said, Bernard Purdy. He didn't even think of, he didn't even, I'm like, I got you. I got you. I said,
Oh, man.
I'll call Bernard and we'll make it happen. So I called Bernard. We set up this thing, went to Italy. Of course, we put a couple more events to make it more viable for us to fly there and so forth with the costs.
Hmm.
And it was incredible because we were playing, we had local musicians. So we ended up playing shows and also do a clinic. I would open and talk about my things a little bit, and then, of course, introduce the master himself. But,
That's cool.
Lefty and Bernard being right hand on a couple of small stages, the hi-hats were like this far apart. In fact, the finale of the show was I remember one night I would play on his
Oh,
hi-hat.
really?
Um,
Wow. Do you have any pictures or videos of that?
yeah, there is some on
That
YouTube.
that would be cool.
There is photos and definitely
Oh,
videos. I have some hard drives that I have to dig out where I might have more footage.
I hear
This is
you.
10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I can tell you that being on the road with Bernard was one of the best learning experiences of my life. First
Uh-huh.
of all, stories, the things that he would tell me, the advice that he gave me, but being that close every night,
Oh, sure.
concert, watching him, feeling the vibration of that hi-hat. I mean, the one thing I remember that I came home with was that basically it didn't matter what groove he played, he was always swinging the beat, even
Sure.
that something was more, straight funk or whatever. The
Yeah.
hi-hat, the ride were always swinging. It was really like heavy jazz feel with the backbeat. That was just incredible. I mean, you know,
Yeah. I love watching his videos.
learned
When
so
he's
much from
talking and teaching. So man, I would love to just sit and watch that guy for I've never seen him live. He was actually playing a gig. This is like 30 years ago or something in Virginia Beach. And I was there on the wrong days with my wife, just on a little vacation, the two of us, first time away after our son was born. And actually we ended up leaving early. I don't know why. But anyways, I didn't get to see him. If I'd stayed an extra day or two, I would have seen him. Um well, let me do this. So we're gonna have to this I feel a little bit bad. I know my dog needs attention and she probably has to go outside. I let her out before we started, and they're usually good for hours. But I don't know. I
no,
hate to have to go, but I'm not going to go quite yet. First of all, we're going to entitle this part one,
beautiful. I like that.
because we need to do another one soon too, because I want to keep the momentum going here. There's a lot to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah,
So
count me.
before that though, hold on one second. Randy, it's okay, sweetie. I promise I'll get up. I'll get with you soon. Um, Brandy is our guest here is Brandy. Say hello to Brandy, folks. There she is. Hey, Brandy. Oh, you can see my cardboard box here. By the way, Marissa Dodge is a friend of mine, an amazing musician and keyboard player in, I believe, St. Paul, Minneapolis area. And she noticed the microphone I have, and I just want to make a comment. I know it'd be better if I had it sideways, but the arm isn't long enough, and I'm getting a new mic stand. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's that. Here's what I wanted to do. I want to ask you, as we were talking before we started this in the beginning, what parting words of wisdom do you have for people? Or if I was to ask it another way, do you have any advice? If you had one thing to say, let's say to the players out there, the players, and especially the players who are really always wanting to learn, what advice do you have?
I would like to tell people, viewers, players, that it's really one day at a time. And what I mean with this is this, we just transitioned from 2020 to 2021. And at the beginning of every year, you and I both know, everybody knows, there's a lot of talking about what's your New Year resolution. Some people will post it on social media. Some people talk about it. But there is this thing where every year you're supposed to do something new or improve something that you haven't done the year before or so forth. Now, when I say one day at a time, I call it dayvolution, evolving one day at a time. A day, such a day is a long fragment. The reason why I say that is because, teaching in college, when I first heard about the 30-minute lesson, I was like, wow, 30 minutes, that's such a short period of time. But it's all about how you space that time. How much can you do in 30 minutes if you do it well? And learning from that experience, now I'm thinking, okay, if every half hour could feel long and meaningful and powerful, now we're talking about many half hours during a day and many days as part of a year. So the New Year resolution, we make it maybe a dayvolution. Every day you make a resolution, you get up, and you want to do something better than the way you did it the day before. So this constant learning and forward motion has to happen at a faster pace and on a regular basis. You could work on 4 or 5 projects at the same time, and every day just plant a little seed in each direction and watch the trees grow. That would be one advice that, that's the advice that I give myself every morning when I get up. So, of course, I want to share it with everybody else. But uh, something a little more practical, other than the concept itself, would be to actually have a notepad, take notes of where you're at, and monitor your progress. Because whatever you do, watching where you started and where you're getting at is going to give you lots of motivation and power to continue to do so. Whether it's tempos on the metronomes that you're trying to achieve, slowing down something to make it super slow, super hard, or work on your up tempos. Because we always play in the middle. Not that it's not important, but typically it's very hard, from a technical standpoint, to play very slow or very fast. So give yourself some targets and jot them down. So the next day you can start warming up at the tempo where you were before, and then do it at the next BPM up or down. Same thing with dynamics. We always play kind of in the middle. Well, if you watch Tommy Aldridge playing a show at that dynamic level, there's some to be said there.
Yeah.
And you can watch Mark Juliana or Brian Blake,
Oh, man.
Bill Stewart, people that or simply go on a pad. I've had an interesting lesson talking about always learning. I've been Zooming with a friend of mine from Italy that lives in San Francisco, phenomenal drummer. His name is Pepe Merolla. Check him out.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, Pepe
Yeah.
Merolla, Merolla. Phenomenal drummer. And I've been Zooming with him, and he's helping me, with some technical developments for my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day told me to play an exercise pretending that there was a kid in a crib sleeping next to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now that resonated very much with me, because I thought I was playing the exercise, soft enough, but it wasn't soft enough. So I developed like that type of playing on the pad and really keep it at a bare minimum. So at a practical level, jot down your improvements, have some goals, and look, there is a ton of information there. Remember what we said before. You have to prioritize, understand what comes first, study with a teacher. Extremely important. Whatever discipline you want to get into, go with the best. There's a ton of free material out there, which is great, but there is also a ton of material that is, uncensored. And again, it's not even the content of it, but the proper allocation and the proper order. So if you go to see a teacher in whatever discipline you want to improve, it's his job or her job to give you the right pills on the right day. It's like going to see a doctor. Yeah. He's going to prescribe you something that relates to you, reading your values. This is what you need. You take 2 a day after the meals, not 3, not 1.5. And then, then after 2 weeks, see what's next. That's my advice to you. Really do focused practice and be exposed. Make sure you can get in touch with the professionals, people that teach because they love to teach, not because they don't have other opportunities. People that have a passion and a system, like you said before, having a system in place, which you develop over the years by doing it and because you love it. So
sure, you develop, keep.
It was long advice here. I took my time, but
no, I love that though. I mean, first of all, having a notepad. I mean, this is me. This goes everywhere I go. Almost every page is full. I have several of these, like a library of notes. But sometimes I go back. I have dates of when I write stuff down. You know what? Sometimes I'm reminded of something I forgot about. So when I remember what I forgot to remember, that can be actually really good. The other thing too is when you are giving this advice, it really, the devolution, I love that. A half an hour here, focus. It's one of the things I've been learning about the brain and neuroplasticity, about how the brain can adapt itself to experience and learning events. And this all comes, I didn't make any of this up, I'm not smart enough for that, but it comes from the experts out there doing the research. And these shorter bouts of attention are where we usually learn more, right? I mean, not that you can't focus for an hour, or go to New York City and take a lesson with Kenwood for 3 hours. I'm guessing you probably didn't focus 100% for 3 hours, because you have to have this, but right. So these little chunks, I think it's really important. And then that comes back to what you originally said way back in the beginning of prioritizing. This is actually a way of prioritizing.
It is.
Focus is a priority. Focus on the right things, and building your system as a player, as a student, building, and as a teacher. So this has been great, man. So this is part one, because we've got more to talk about.
I will be here, and next time we can put this camera set up to work, and maybe
let's do it, man.
if you're into it.
I would love that.
Continue the conversation. It has been a pleasure for me. I think you not only asked very very thoughtful questions, but some of your notes and your way of thinking actually stimulated the conversation to be more of an organic round table type of thing, which that's always the case. I felt like we played a gig, and we were playing together.
Actually, me too. Yeah. Another hermano de otra madre. How we're thinking and different things like this, and priorities. It's really great, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I want to ask questions that are going to elicit an answer that means something. And I know that you have these things to share, and I just want to get it out of you, because of how you've helped me a lot with, you don't even know it, but with how you articulate, how you build on things. I love it, man. So this is part one. We'll do part two soon too. I'm flexible. Thank you very much, Sergio. Thank you very much. I'll make sure that in the bio, everybody, or I'm not the bio, the description in YouTube here, that we have appropriate links to go to different places where you can buy Sergio's music, learn about lessons, learn about teaching lessons. The mentorship type of thing is that's a great idea, man. I'll help you any way I can.
Yeah. Let's get that to the next level, which will be get it in motion. I have a document. I'll share it with you. We could share it with some of the viewers, or all of the viewers actually, and it highlights the way it could work, and it's work in progress. But the idea is
that's great.
Hands-on teaching on teaching, teachers on teaching, and the other way around. So, okay.
Excellent. And I also wanted to say thank you to Terry, your wife, for giving me some questions to answer that I would never have known to ask her about Bernard Vini getting fired. Great. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate that a lot. So, all right, Sergio. Well, listen, man, do me a favor. When we go off, I'll sign off, but I want you to hang on with me for a minute, okay?
Absolutely.
Don't go away. Sergio, thank you so much. This has been really a blast. I enjoy this so much, this conversation, and everything you do. Thank you for this. Thank you, everybody who's watching on Facebook Live. Wherever you're seeing this, thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much. Check out the description on YouTube for various links so you can learn more about Sergio, what he does, his music, his lessons, everything. Have a great day. Thank you again, my friend. Talk soon. Part 2 coming soon, folks. We'll see you later.